To other news now, and the speed at which perpetrators of domestic abuse are being prosecuted in Hampshire has accelerated following the introduction of a new system being trialled in the county. The Crown Prosecution Service is now deciding whether or not to bring prosecutions within 3 hours of a case being referred to them by police. Conviction rates appear to be improving as a result. In the weeks before the coronavirus restrictions were brought in, our Home Affairs correspondent Nikki Mitchell was given exclusive access to one of the force's domestic violence response teams.
Hello. Hello.
The first call out this Friday night is to a woman who says her grown-up son has been violent and aggressive towards her.
So he has threatened to kill you, and you believe that he would?
Yes, says the woman whose identity we're protecting. She's a nervous wreck, she tells us. She can't take it anymore.
How has he made these threats today?
It takes PC James Entiknap, advocate Cerys Holdstock and their colleague Sophie well over an hour to establish exactly what's happened and what danger the woman is in.
So I know it's difficult for you, but we just need to get the full picture.
The woman says she made a statement against her grown-up son after another incident last year, but was then persuaded to withdraw it. Victims withdrawing their statements is a frequent occurrence in domestic abuse cases.
Yes, it can be frustrating, but we just need to make sure we do the right thing for that victim at that time. They might not be ready to end an abusive relationship or support police prosecution. Our role isn't necessarily to force them to do something they don't want to do, but it's to support them and make sure that when the time comes that they want to break that cycle of behaviour, they feel empowered to do it.
Here and now, that time has come.
Today, where he's threatened to kill you, we can deal with that. He will be arrested.
I've got an alarm here because I know you said that sometimes you're on your own and you feel quite frightened that he's going to jump out and attack you.
Cerys hands over a personal alarm and arranges for Aurora New Dawn, the charity she works for, to provide ongoing help and support in the civil courts if necessary.
What I can do is refer you to our outreach service and we can help you to get a non-molestation order, an injunction.
That's the second lot of blue lights we've seen today.
Domestic violence makes up a large percentage of police response and patrol call-outs.
Over half, and some days even higher percentage than that. Some days I'll come in and all I'll deal with all day is domestic related incidents, whether they be crimes or arguments or harassment, stalking, things like that. And that is also partly down to our policies and procedure around domestic abuse. You know, we will attend any domestic incident and safeguard victims and families.
On a typical night, we would be busy constantly. We'd be going to grade 1 domestics, one after the next. You walk into something where there's glass all over the place, there's blood all over the place, and you don't really know what to expect. The severity of the violence is also escalating, which is really quite worrying.
Threats to life and threats to cause criminal damage.
Back at the police station, the team plans the arrest. With backup, they track down their suspect.
We've had an allegation.
The young man denies everything.
I don't propose to stick you in handcuffs unless you give me a cause to, right? Well, mission accomplished.
Once arrested, the police investigations team will interview suspects, collect all the evidence together and pass the case to the Crown Prosecution Service. Now, under the new system being trialled in Hampshire, the CPS will tell the police if there's sufficient evidence to prosecute within 3 hours. A decision used to take days or weeks.
It is making a tremendous difference in terms of the rapidity with which we can get cases into court. And the quicker we can get a domestic abuse case into the court arena, the more likely it is to be successful, because the less likely it is that the victim of domestic abuse will start to worry about coming to court, will fear coming into court, the less likely there will have been for pressure to be put on them not to attend and not to support the prosecution, so that we bring those offenders to justice quickly with the minimal risk to losing those cases because a victim or witness doesn't want to participate.
It also means if there's not enough evidence to pursue a criminal prosecution, other measures can be taken, like helping victims get injunctions against their abusers in the civil courts.
I'm pretty worried because of the amount of no further actions, the amount of no charges. Yeah, it is pretty worrying.
Despite so many domestic violence responses ending without prosecution, where there is sufficient evidence to bring charges, the conviction rate locally is up to 80%. It's a small increase, but Wessex CPS believes it's partly due to quicker decision making.
Well, hopefully it will prevent that cycle of behaviour from carrying on. That's going to be a positive thing.
Before the team's shift ends, another call comes in. And tonight, they tell me, has been a fairly quiet one. Nikki Mitchell, BBC South Today.
Well, a little earlier I asked Nikki if prosecutors are still managing to make quick charging decisions in domestic abuse cases despite the coronavirus crisis.
Yes, they are, Sally. I'm told that the average speed of a decision on a domestic abuse prosecution in Hampshire is now around an hour and a half of when the police submit their case to the CPS. And the trial's now been widened to 6 other forces across the country. Measures to tackle domestic violence really need to be stepped up right now as calls to helplines are soaring because virus restrictions, of course, are forcing more victims to stay for longer at home with their abusers. Berkshire Women's Aid, for instance, it's seen an increase of 50% in requests for places in its refuge. And it's among many women's groups that are pleading with the government to get the money that it's promised to this sector out to the charities as soon as possible.
Nikki Mitchell.